Good evening, everyone. I call to order this July 30th, 2025 meeting of the Planning and Transportation Commission. Mr. Tavera, would you call the roll?
Yes. Chair Aiken.
Here.
Vice Chair Chang.
Here.
Commissioner Heckman.
Here.
Commissioner James. Commissioner G. Commissioner Peterson.
Here.
Commissioner Templeton.
Here.
For the record, we have quorum and 2 absent, marking Commissioner James and Commissioner G absent.
So I was expecting Commissioner James to be attending remotely. Do we have him online?
Not at the moment, but if he does log on, we will let staff and the board know.
Thank you. All right, so let's begin. Do we have any public comment for items that are not on the agenda?
Through the chair, at the moment, I have not received any public comment cards or any raised hands via Zoom.
Thank you. Assistant Director Armour, do we have any agenda changes, additions, or deletions?
No agenda changes this evening.
Then may I segue into your report?
Yes, thank you. So we will share the director's presentation now. While we're waiting for that to load, I will share that at this evening's meeting, we have for the attorney's office, we have Tim Shimizu, who will be joining us in Albert Yang's place. He is online and will be available to answer questions as needed. All right, so next slide for this evening's director's report. For our upcoming meetings, I've laid out here what we currently have for the next month and a half. At this time, we don't have any items scheduled for the August 13th meeting, so we do anticipate that that meeting would be canceled. But on August 27th, we do expect to have the tentative map for the project at 70 Encina Avenue and the next discussion of the stream protection ordinance. On September 6th, we have selected as the tentative date for the Planning and Transportation Commission retreat. That's a Saturday morning from 10 to noon. We are holding that spot as tentative as we confirm some logistical details, but we will send you more information as we get it. So if you can hold that on your calendar, and we will we'll let you know if it needs to be moved. Otherwise, we will send you an agenda as we get closer to that date. And then finally, on September 10th, I wanted to give an early heads up that we are planning to bring to you the first discussion of the San Antonio Road Area Plan, update on the initial work that's been done and outreach and next steps. Next page. For City Council, we are just finishing up their summer recess, and the first regular meeting in August, on August 4th, is actually canceled. But on the 11th, there will be 2 pre-screenings for future housing development projects. This is the first step in their going through the PHC process. One of them is at 4256 El Camino Real, and the other at 332 Forest Avenue. And that concludes my presentation.
Commissioners, any questions for AD Armour? Commissioner Templeton.
I don't know if my signal works. I just wanted to double check. You want us to meet twice that week, so the Saturday and the Wednesday for the retreat? I think we should choose one or the other.
That the retreat would be on Saturday the 6th. The meeting would be the following Wednesday. The regular meeting would be the following Wednesday the 10th.
That is what you showed. I'm suggesting that
there's concern with having 2 meetings in one week.
Well, I'm asking if we could take a look, because it doesn't look like there's a heavy agenda and it's a lot of we're a commission that meets very frequently
Mhm.
already. And if we have a lightweight agenda one day and we need time for the retreat, we may want to think about how to optimize everybody's time, not just ours, but yours.
Yeah.
So if you could
Okay.
talk that over with the chair, vice chair, perhaps we could
We
figure
can do
something out.
that and maybe check back in with the entire Planning Transportation Commission to see if there would be a preference to keep to a regular meeting date. That may be an option
Thanks.
as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, Senior Engineer Rios is with us. Mr. Rios, could we have your report?
Thank you. Rafael Rios, Senior Engineer with the Office of Transportation. Just a couple of brief updates for you. On June 2nd, our City Council adopted the Safety Action Plan, which identifies the high injury network and safety corridors as part of the Safe Streets for All Action Plan. So that will help us moving forward with identifying projects along those corridors. And then also on August 18th, we're planning to bring engineering and traffic speed surveys to the City Council for adoption. And that's part of the process for establishing posted speed limits. We'll have this one on the 18th, which is a small batch of about 23 segments, then followed in a couple months by another batch. Both of these are incorporating kind of newish or said assembly bills that were adopted that give us new criteria for establishing posted speed limits. So we'll those new laws are being incorporated into the process of developing these. So it'll help us with certifying the posted speed limits and also establishing making them eligible for enforcement using radar by our police department. That's the only updates I have at this time, unless you have any questions for me.
Commissioners, any questions? Vice Chair Chang.
Could you just expand a little bit on which laws it is that changes things so that I can do some reading up on my own?
Sure. So the most I guess effective one is it was Assembly Bill 43 from 2022. I think that number's been reused. So I know the 2022 year, and then another is Assembly Bill 1938. And kind of gives more flexibility to take an extra 5 mile an hour reduction, and then also like kind of other justifications such as business districts or like high bike and ped corridors or and stuff. So it will be something. I mean, we're already incorporating it into these, so it's going to really beneficial for us.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Rios. I saw we had a public comment card arrived. Is that for the action item or was that for an item outside the agenda?
That's for the 400 Mitchell Lane, the action item.
Okay, thank you. All right, then let's proceed to our action item tonight. This concerns a request for a public hearing for a conditional use permit to allow private educational uses within an existing building at 400 Mitchell Lane. Does anyone have any disclosures to make? I see none. Okay. Because we are hearing an appeal tonight, we may have a slightly different process depending on our commenters. So I wanted to outline that first so that everyone was up to date. Staff presentation will be first, and then we'll follow that with clarifying questions for staff. After that, we've reserved time for presentations from the appellant and the applicant, which could run up to 15 minutes. And after those presentations, we'll hear the public comments. Then the appellant and the applicant will each have the opportunity for rebuttals, which could run up to 3 minutes each. Following those rebuttals, if they take place, we'll have a chance for clarifying questions for the appellant and the applicant. And then we'll return it to the commission for discussion. So that's the process we expect. So let's begin with the staff report.
Thank you. I am pleased to introduce Stephen Switzer, who's our historic planner. He's actually been with the city for a while, but this is his first Planning and Transportation Commission meeting. So I wanted to welcome him.
Thank you.
And he skipped right over and had an item going to council. So pleased to have him joining us here this evening, and I'll pass it off to you.
Well, good evening. Bear with me while I share my screen here. All right, well, let's take a trip to 400 Mitchell Lane. So this is a request for a conditional use permit. We can orient ourselves here, the project location. This is a snippet of the property. Indicated in yellow is the sublease portion as indicated in the staff report. And here is a zoomed in version. Just some basic information. It is in the public facility zoning district. It is on a sublease portion of approximately 0.551 acres. It's on the same parcel as El Camino Park. The property is under Williamson Act contract, and adjacent land uses are detailed in the staff report as well as on the screen. To provide a little background and lay out the process for tonight's evening, this was a request for a conditional use permit to allow a private university use within the existing building at 400 Mitchell Lane. Staff had conducted a review of the submitted application, as well as some interior improvements to the structure. And on June 9th, the Director of Planning and Development Services tentatively approved the said conditional use permit. Following that, during the 14-day appeal period or request for hearing period, if you will, on June 17th, a written request was filed with the city for the application. And following tonight's recommendation from the Planning and Transportation Commission, the project will then be forwarded to council for final decision. So, project overview. This is a private university use. Stanford will utilize the space for their School of Sustainability, and it is located within an existing building on the property that was formerly used by the American Red Cross and Urban Ministry of Palo Alto. And more recently, the Palo Alto Chamber of Commerce occupied the space until about 2014. And the structure has remained vacant since 2018. As detailed in the project plans and the staff report, there are some other physical improvements. Those are limited to ADA upgrades, some HVAC, electrical and lighting, and fire safety improvements. And that is contained in attachment E. So I can walk us through here. The plan's pretty quick. So here is the site plan, or the first floor plan, should I say, of the property. The areas indicated in yellow would be sustaining some change. So predominantly the restrooms, as well as some partition walls and reorganizing of the space. This is the proposed new floor plan to accommodate the collection, storage, and some field and staging offices. Here are some elevations, and some of the perspective might be a little off on these images, but bear with me. So here's the northern elevation and the proposed changes. The eastern elevation with a new proposed metal door and existing opening, and some of the electrical panels indicated. The southern elevation, and lastly, the western elevation. So into the reason why we are here, this is a request for hearing. Some of the concerns are detailed in attachment E. The letter did not specify any specific concerns with the project and the written request that is included. However, staff does want to note that there was a separate email from the appellant that expressed some concerns with the processing of two separate applications on the same property. The said application before the commission tonight, the conditional use permit, as well as a tree removal permit that was filed on the property. And that was detailed in the staff report, and staff just would like to note that both applications have independent utility, and meaning the approval is unrelated to and not dependent on one another for these items. Some key considerations for the commission tonight would be the request for hearing concerns, the conditional use permit findings contained in attachment B, Williamson Act, as well as conditions of approval in attachment C. Walking us through these two findings here. In finding one, this is to ensure that the proposed use at the location will not be detrimental to the public or injurious. So the project would be located within an existing building on the property and would be conditioned to comply with applicable standards for tenant improvements contained in the project request. Staff would like to add a point of clarity here. It is listed as a private education use, and the zoning code does provide a little bit of more detail for university uses. So adding the word university is being recommended to that finding. So just one word addition to add some clarity to the finding. Finding number two, that the proposed use would be located and conducted in a manner in accord with the comprehensive plan, as well as the zoning ordinance. As noted before, staff would like to clarify and add the word university in the findings, and as permitted and conditioned, the project would be conducted in a manner that is in accord with the code. The property is under Williamson Act contract. Stanford University, as well as the city of Palo Alto, entered into contract with this said property in 1973. Contained in that contract, there is a list of compatible uses, and this is detailed as a compatible use since it is listed as a use in the zoning code for the public facilities zoning district. So on to the recommendation. So staff is recommending that the Planning and Transportation Commission provide a recommendation on the proposed project to City Council based on the findings in attachment B as modified with the addition of the word university and subject to the conditions of approval in attachment C. And the Planning and Transportation Commission may also recommend approval of the project with further modified findings or conditions. They may continue the project to a date uncertain, or and please provide some specific direction, or recommend project denial based on revised findings. And with that, I can entertain any questions.
Commissioners, any clarifying questions for staff? Commissioner Heckman.
Thank you. And thank you for the report. Welcome to the PTC. And I was very impressed with how adept you were moving through the slides and having one slide migrate into another. I enjoyed the presentation. So keep up the good work. I had a question on the staff recommendation. Often, if not usually, when we have a staff report, something that's going to council, staff has kind of an affirmative recommendation. Now, our recommendation is that the PTC recommend that the council approve this ordinance or that. Here, staff doesn't go that far, at least in my reading of it. And I was wondering if that is because of this context that our chair described. This is an appeal, and so the staff recommendation on packet page 8 is what I would describe as a little more neutral. Is that the reason for that?
I would clarify that staff's recommendation is to recommend that council deny the appeal and uphold the director's decision.
Thank you for that clarification.
Sorry, going to jump in there through the chair. I think technically this isn't an appeal, it's a request for hearing. So let me reword that. Staff's recommendation would be to forward a recommendation for approval of the conditional use permit.
As modified.
Correct.
Correct.
Peterson.
So a quick question, the decision that we vote on here, is that then going to council next and then council votes on it?
Correct. It would be moved to the consent calendar on council with the option to be removed or for further discussion. But yes, the recommendation here would be sent to council for final decision.
Further questions? I see none. So I believe we're ready to see if either our appellant or applicant are present. Mr. Tavera, do we have any requests from the appellant or the applicant?
So I don't have any online requests from the appellant.
The applicant is in the chambers with us. So
very good. Normal procedures for the appellant to speak first, but if the appellant is not present, then we would be happy to hear from the applicant.
Good evening, planning commissioners. My name is Diana Odell, Director of Land Use for Stanford University. And with me tonight is Stacy Yuen, also from Stanford. And on our Zoom line, we have Ramsey Shuaito, who is our Director of Asset Management, and we're here to answer any questions you might have. As staff discussed in their excellent presentation, the property is an existing building that has been unoccupied, and we are pleased to propose reuse for our Stanford Dorr School of Sustainability. The school has a mission of advancing sustainability through interdisciplinary research and education, and the proposed use fits within our academic mission and the City of Palo Alto's requirements and comprehensive plan goals. The building will be used for field education services with working and training services, and will host a portion of our geoscience specimen collection. And it will enhance the educational and research capabilities of our faculty and students. We request that the Planning and Transportation Committee uphold the director's tentative approval in concurrence with the findings and subject to the conditions of approval. We're available to answer any questions you might have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I will move on to public comment just in case there is a comment for which the applicant chooses to address in the rebuttal. So, Mr. Tavera, do we have public comments?
Through the chair, we have one public comment. At this time, I'm going to invite Lynn C. to the mic.
Good evening. I'm Lynn Chiapella, and I walked down to see this site. I read about it in the, I believe in the Post. Anyway, I was surprised that it's came up and very glad that the appellant did bring it up, because I think this is occurring not only on this property, but on many other properties where a building is going to a new house. It could be a sewer project or whatever. And the trees, which are supposed to be left are protected. And then when the project is finished, they have vanished. The on-site trees have vanished. The street tree has vanished, or street trees have vanished. And there have been quite a few incidents where I live at the 600, 500 block of Colorado. And I think the way they are doing this is just this particular mode. And I tried to look up this PL 25 PL 131 on the city website. It's almost impossible to find. And actually flipped over to the county, and I had to really do a lot of searching. In the end, after an hour, I gave up. I did not find any evidence, and I believe it should have been attached at least so one could read what it said. So I have no idea what it says or why. But I am here because I see this happening so often in South Palo Alto. So down the street, they built a house and they protected the trees on the property. The street tree was protected and a large tree was protected, which looked to me to be in the building zone. When I tried to inquire, I basically got nowhere. When I tried to go on the city site to see what they were proposing, it's very, very difficult to navigate. I'm sure you've all tried or may or may not. So I took myself to the site to see what was really going on last night. And it looks like whoever the landlord is or the property owner has completely neglected that building. I don't see how you can do the inside without doing something on the outside. There was peeling and broken pieces. I don't know what the material is there. There were big cement things sticking out of the ground. I don't know what they're for. Maybe it was a walkway. I don't know what it was. It wasn't a walkway to anything I knew. I found homeless or garbage all over the site. I was very careful where I stepped, as was my dog. I found mounds surrounding the site. I hope that you all went out and looked at it.
This
It's
concludes your time.
extremely neglected. And so I felt that at least the trees and the building should have come together, because it really is one project. It's not two. And two, whoever the landlord is, which I couldn't find, clearly has not taken care of any of the property. There are heritage trees along the driveway where I believe the trucks will go. It mentioned there were heritage trees, but it also mentioned no tree protection. Usually you have tree protection if there's anywhere near.
Thank you. This
We'll need
concludes your
to-
time.
Yeah, because you're the only speaker, I'm happy to give you a few extra minutes, but it is time to wrap things up, if you would, please.
Anyway, it seems to be a modus operandi, and it's happening not only there, but these trees just disappear when a project finishes. So at least, I think we've lost 4 trees, my neighbor's tree, another tree at a new building site, not a brand new building site, but at the building site, 2 trees disappeared off that property. Just recently, another tree disappeared during a sewer project. 2 trees disappeared at the pizza parlor. And what I'm saying is, I can't find any record of why that happens. And it's very hard to track these PL for the tree things down. And I have called actually city trees and still not been able to get an answer. So I'm here appealing to you to think about this particular way of doing business. It's clever. It works for developers. I've even talked to real estate agents. It works. You
Thank
get
you.
rid
This
of anything
concludes your
you don't
time.
want, but it's not really fair to the general public who believes what they see is what they're going to get.
Thank you for your comments and your observations. We do have the opportunity for the applicant to speak a second time, if you are interested in doing so.
Through the chair, I just want to confirm that we don't have any members of the public wishing to speak from online. Thank you.
Do not.
There's no obligation, but you are free to speak if you wish.
Thank you. I'll just make a couple notes that we are planning to do a series of external improvements to address some of the concerns that the speaker discussed on the property, and we are looking to improve those. And I will say that the city is not looking to remove any tree without authorization from the city of Palo Alto, and we are pursuing a tree removal permit for those 2 bay trees in the courtyard, and we'll follow whatever requirements are made by the city of Palo Alto on those trees. So that's all I have this time.
Thank you. Yeah, in fact, I am just about to open it up. Commissioners, you're free to ask questions of the applicant. Commissioner Templeton.
Thank you. I really appreciate your presentation, and I love the idea of this project. I was wondering if you could speak to the intention of the Doris School of Sustainability regarding removing net trees unnecessarily, and or why you might wish to remove the trees that you mentioned.
Yes, just a couple points of clarification. As Planner Switzer mentioned, Mr. Switzer, that the tree removal permit is a separate application. However, we did receive an arborist report that indicated that there are some hazards with the tree and the way that the trunk is in terms of it being a concern from a safety standpoint. And so we, as part of our due diligence, are pursuing that and are trying to manage that tree in a way that's safe for everyone, and also that we can replace the canopy, which we understand is a requirement for the city of Palo Alto. So we are pursuing that, though it's on a separate track from this CUP.
Yes, and maybe 30 seconds about the feelings of environmental stewardship that's shared by the school, perhaps?
Yes, I believe that the School of Sustainability is doing a lot of really exciting field research to make our environment and our community more sustainable. And I think that this building, being next to a train station, being on our Marguerite line, is going to be sustainable on a number of metrics. And we're looking forward to all the work that the school is going to be doing on our university and in the region at large.
And it says in this packet that that's going to be a facility not only used by the school, but also to educate members of our city through field trips and other kinds of openness and engagement with the community. Is that right?
The building will be used for field education services, and it will have working and training spaces, and we will be hosting specimen collection. And I know that the Stanford University is continuing to work with Palo Alto on ways to sort of activate the transit center and find partnerships between the university and the city on matters of sustainability and other ideas as well.
Thank you very much. Those are my questions.
Okay.
Vice Chair Chang.
Could either you or staff speak to the public commenters' concern about protection of the various heritage trees? I understand the bay laurels are not, but the heritage trees that are near the site and that, you know, trucks would drive along.
So, yeah, I don't know.
I might take a stab at that. So let's see here. So just a few things. The tree removal permit, and talking about that, I mean, it's a permit that the city has for providing, you know, required evidence per an arborist report of removing a tree. If we're talking about tree protection zones or work within, say, the root area that could potentially damage a tree, that's also captured in an arborist report. Since this project is primarily regarding, say, interior work with, you know, of course, some paint and some doors being swapped out in existing openings, there was no ground disturbing work that would impact the protected trees on the property. So
thank you very much.
Any other clarifying questions for the applicant? Commissioner Peterson.
Thank you. Appreciate your time here. So one of the questions on this site, kind of, you know, it's brought up by the question on the trees and the outside of the building and the rest and the facility and the condition it is what ultimately is the purpose of the site? Because it sounds like, you know, whatever we're talking about right now is a transitory situation, that the site was used for something else. I'm guessing it's within the Stanford easement. Is that the ownership of it?
It's on our property, yes.
And so, because it's not really continuous, it's over by the railroad. So that's why I was wondering.
Yeah.
Stanford has a whole stretch of property along the railroad.
Yes.
So one of the questions is, is how does this fit into the bigger idea of how this site, as Commissioner Templeton asked, is it part of the education facility that's going to tie in with, maybe Palo Alto High School across the street? Is there any sense that you can give us a bigger idea of what's the situation of this site?
Yes, at this time, we really don't have larger plans that we wanted to pursue at this time. I think anything that we would pursue long-term, we would do in partnership with the city of Palo Alto. I think this building has been vacant for a number of years, and we saw a great opportunity to use it for our academic facilities. It's still a standing building. It's still a fine building. It's a great location. And we thought that this was going to be a perfect place for a little bit more space for our school sustainability.
A quick question. I'm not completely familiar with the geology department, but is this part of a cluster of buildings, education buildings for Stanford that are along the railroad track or on the other side of it? Or is it just by itself?
Right now, it's really just a standalone building. And because it's along the Marguerite line and next to Caltrain, there's still a lot of connections between that and some of the other facilities on campus.
And so that's right now. And so then later on, it could be part of a larger facility?
We don't have any kind of long-term plans for beyond what is before you tonight, which is just the reuse of that building.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions for the applicant? All right, then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll bring the discussion back to the commission. Any comments from commissioners? Commissioner Heckman.
Thank you. So I appreciate the presentation by the applicant. I wish the appellant had been here to express a little bit of clarity as to what their concerns were beyond the short email they sent regarding CEQA. And I appreciate the comments of the neighbor that I think, fleshed out a little bit of good dialogue between us and the applicant. I'm supportive of the project, so I'm supportive of recommending approval of the CUP to the council. I do have a few comments on the documentation. First, in the findings, when I think about this, what this proposed use is it's an educational use. It happens to be sought by a private university. And so in the findings that were on our screen, it said private education university use. I think what's private is the university. The education is not private any more than, if you can go to a public school and you have to enroll and be admitted. And so there's not everybody can just walk into the class and take it. So I think the appropriate order of language here is private university education use. So I would suggest that staff think about that. And then I've got a couple comments on the conditions of approval. First is condition 13, which appears on packet page 19. So what's being applied for is a conditional use permit, and conditional use permits can have an end date or no end date. And it's always a good idea for the conditions of approval to state which of those it is. It's a 5-year term, a 10-year term, or no termination date. Here, this expiration provision is really only focused on what happens if you don't pull your building permit within a year. And so assuming you do, it leaves open the question of, is there a time duration for this use permit? And so I would suggest that as this moves toward council, that staff make that provision a bit clearer. So that I believe the intention is that it's of unlimited duration. I would suspect that. I didn't read anything that would suggest otherwise. So I'd suggest that staff give that some thought. Also, I do a lot of work in the unincorporated county where you would think you can get a building permit and start work in a year, but sometimes you can't. And so I just want to flag that issue because I think all that has to happen is you need to get the building permit issued. So they've got a year to pull the building permit, and then they can actually do the work after that. Of course, hopefully all this will be done much faster, but I just want to make sure that there are no unpleasant surprises. So I think that language is fine with a thought about the duration. Then I wanted to ask a question about conditions 22 through 33. And these were all issued by the Utilities Department, and so we may not be able to get an answer. But as I read through these conditions, I can't tell whether a member of city staff looked at the plans and said, this is an issue that needs to be addressed, or if this is just part of a laundry list of standard conditions which may or may not apply to the project. And this is a personal pet peeve of mine that I think every city staff should build conditions of approval only with conditions that actually apply, not with some that may theoretically apply but don't here. And so I would ask that as this moves toward council, staff look at conditions 22 to 33, and if it, as to any of those that are generic and will have no actual application here, those should be removed. So those are my suggestions on how to improve this as it moves toward council. Thank you.
I have a follow-up for you, Commissioner Heckman. The use of the word university arises in part because of my reading of the code. A private education use is permitted in a PF zone if the property is owned by the government. There is a separate category of private education use by a university, which allows the use on university-owned property, and that's the one that applies here. So I had suggested that the word university be made more prominent to avoid confusion over that issue. Does that affect your recommendation for wording?
Well, since there's a purpose to order the words as presented on our screen, I'm fine with that.
And I have no objection to the other order, provided that it's acceptable to staff.
Yes, either way would be acceptable. So.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Any other discussion from the commission? Vice Chair Chang.
I just wanted to say that I too am supportive of this building being used rather than vacant, because leaving it vacant introduces many of the problems that were highlighted by our public commenter. And so it's good to see a building being used for an allowed use, assuming that we approve the CUP. So, and I also appreciate all of Commissioner Heckman's comments. I also agree with the reordering and think it's pretty important to add the word university as stated, so it's clear what the use is, but also so to avoid that legal confusion. That's it.
Commissioner Peterson.
So I'm left with a question about the long-term use of the site, which I think, as the applicant said, nobody knows. We know that the site's currently abandoned, more or less. The land's owned by Stanford, leased, I assume, at some point, not leased now. And what is the future of that lot? I don't have any indication whatsoever. If I think about a standalone building in Palo Alto from the university. I can't think of many others that fit that profile. So it brings up some questions for council. I think that our job is to untangle a little bit is what is the applicant asking for? Because it is a variation from what the city has already intended that space for. And then I think in the past that parcel has been suggested for affordable housing. Possibly it could be again. So what I'm getting to is what is the long-term plan for the university for their other lands like this land? And or is it going to be individual applications, one after another, brought before us that we'll look at not in totality? Or is this really just, one-off, it's a couple trees and there's a vacant building with some kind of walkway that's crumbling concrete and it's all going to get fixed up? So it's hard for me to hand this over to the city council and say, yeah, I feel completely comfortable with this. I feel like this is a great use of this building. And then the next month we get another one.
Do you need a response from anyone on that, or is that just expressing the concern?
Possibly there's a response. I don't know. If there's a comment on it, because it's going to go on consent and potentially council isn't going to be thinking about land planning. Not all of the council has been on the commission. And so this could be a pretty heavily loaded project, or it might be totally benign. Could be a tree. I don't know. That's already fallen apart.
Through the chair, if it would be helpful, I could provide some additional context.
In fact, I was about to ask you, so please do.
So thank you for the observations and the questions. The context that I would provide is that it is very common for us to get conditional use permit applications for existing buildings. For example, if you think about the downtown, when we have new uses going into those existing buildings, in most cases, those conditional use permits say if you actually get started within a reasonable amount of time, then you can have this use based on these conditions. If you stop that use, the code states that if you cease that use for a period of time, then the conditional use permit expires and you have to apply for a new one. So this does feel a little bit unusual in comparison to that, just because it is a standalone building that's away from other things. There are a couple of buildings on this site. It's unusual given that there is a park on a portion of this site. And so it's multiple different uses in that, and with the long-term lease and all of those components. But in the end, it really is viewed in the same way that a conditional use permit for a new restaurant with alcohol
Quick
service
question.
downtown.
What's the difference between the conditional use permit and the general use permit? I'm not 100% clear on that.
So if a use is allowed by right, then they don't need to go through a discretionary permit for that use. A conditional use is something that has been identified based on the zone it's in. So for example, a church in a residential zone, where to avoid impacts between different uses, the city may want to consider specific conditions, like how late a restaurant could be open, to reduce the potential impacts and have some input from the public. And so for a case like this, where they are asking to have a use that falls out, one step beyond just the permitted uses, this is the process that we have that gives us the opportunity as a city to have a little more control over how that is going to function in the long term. So in this case, it is really just a request to reuse the existing building for this use that requires a conditional use permit. There is no anticipation that there is any other plan except to just find uses for the existing buildings in terms of redevelopment of the site or future changes. And so the review really is focusing on whether this proposal at this time is appropriate.
You raise a good issue. So one of the things, I think it was last meeting or the one before, I'd asked about the university's general use permit. So how does this fit within that process? Because that one's getting fairly close.
That's a separate issue.
So because that one is intended to catch all these subtle different projects here, there, the other one.
So that is actually a permit with the county
Mhm.
for the university, and, you know, most of their land for the university itself is actually with the county. And that is something that they could apply to modify it, but the county does not currently have any application for modification to that use permit.
Right, and that's our opportunity there for the public, for transparency, where we can look at all the projects in totality over a period of time. So like, I don't even know if we have other projects with the university in front of the city right now. I don't know how this one, is there 6 or there's 1 or there's 12?
Yeah, it's a different jurisdiction that issues that permit. And I would recommend that we make sure that we do keep this consideration focused on the request in this individual application, as we would for any applicant.
But you do agree that the general use permit is the process where the public, you know, maybe can ask questions about obscure ordinances that they can't find. They have the public forum, we have town halls where we discuss the totality of the build out for one of the largest landowners in the Western United States and how it impacts the community that's right next to it, traffic, emissions. And I know each one of those individual project conditions, every square foot seems small, but it adds up fairly quickly. And so we're operating outside of a general use permit right now. So that's why I'm asking more careful. I think the last application was 6 years ago.
So I don't know if the city attorney who's here with us, joining us online, has anything else to add, but I would repeat that this is not part of that general land use.
Right, and that's exactly the
permit,
question.
that this is a separate thing on separate property that is not covered by that. And so it doesn't involve review of that permit. That would be
Right.
something
That's
at a different
exactly
time.
the question I'm asking, is that it's not included and it doesn't have that question, which is the whole purpose of the general use process. I guess city attorney, that'd be interesting to hear.
So good evening, commissioners. So the county general use process really only applies to Stanford's lands that are in unincorporated Santa Clara County. The parcel that we're dealing with here at 400 Mitchell is within the city of Palo Alto, which is why the city zoning laws and the CUP process is before you. So it's sometimes not well understood that, Greater Stanford campus is actually within several jurisdictions, including unincorporated Santa Clara County, the city of Palo Alto, and also unincorporated San Mateo County, not to mention all of other Stanford's kind of satellite offices, and also in Redwood City and other places. So the GUP process is county, only applies to the unincorporated county land that Stanford owns, which this is not part of.
So just a quick follow-up question, since we have you on here, is, and I appreciate that answer, that's fairly concise, is when the general use permit does come up, I assume the Palo Alto City Council will be having some input on that process, either through the normal county system, public comment, or something like that, and they'll have some kind of position on this. I don't see any way that process will happen with the city of Palo Alto having absolutely no comment whatsoever. Is that a good gloss of it?
So the city, ultimately through the city council, decides how it voices its opinion on the county general use permit process. It's really ultimately up to them how they would like to get involved.
Is there currently a city position on that, actually, legacy from where the discussion left off?
That I'm not sure. that's a much greater question depending on kind of what issue you're talking about. But I'm sure we can, bring you up to speed on what the city's previous communications with the county has been on that process.
Thank you.
And I can jump in and say that the city staff will coordinate with the county if and when the university does apply for modification to that permit. And at that time, we would be checking in with the council at that time, since it is different members on the council than the last time we went through that process. And so it would, rather than defaulting to a previous determination, it would involve checking in with them to see what level of participation they want to have in that process.
Thank you. Because my understanding, what I heard was that the university's out of square footage in their current permit. And so I think that's where, when I see an abandoned building being converted into a rock museum, I have questions of why.
And I think those are reasonable questions, although beyond the scope of what we can address tonight. So maybe we can follow up with that outside.
So if there is a way for staff to have even a half-page brief for the city council, just raising the issue and making them aware that staff is completely comfortable with that, and that commission raised the issue. And then that way you'd be ready for the questions like what I asked if council asks.
So since this conditional use permit will be going to council, we do always in that report reference the recommendation from the Planning and Transportation Commission, as well as providing links to the staff report, recording, meeting minutes when those are available, so that that information is all available to the council.
Right, but there's no comment on it in the staff report now.
If correct. So if it was the will of the commission to give a specific recommendation for further consideration or discussion by council, that could be part of the motion. But bringing forward a single comment, I mean, it's in terms of these consent calendar items from a staff's perspective, we do want to be cautious about going into detail on individual things that really are beyond the scope of the permit that's before you. And as I said, when the larger permit does get submitted to the county, that is definitely something we will be checking with the council on. They will be able to see that the applicant for this is Stanford University. And so that will be clear in that report.
Do we have another round of questions, or is this pretty much?
I think we have at least 2 commissioners pending, so maybe we should move on. So think about what you might want beyond what's already been discussed. So Commissioner Templeton and then Vice Chair Chang.
Thank you so much, Chair. I really am excited about this project. I too am thrilled to see that we're converting something that has been unused into a vibrant center of local environmental education. Not sure I would categorize it as a rock museum, but I do like the idea of using the space, using it better, and certainly furthering education in areas that are going to be necessary for the future. So I want to just refocus on the project in front of us and say that I think this is a well-designed project. I think the approval requirements have been met. The staff has clearly outlined that. I understand that we have heard public comment, we've heard commissioner comment, that there are other areas that are adjacent or outlying that perhaps need to be looked at more closely, but that's not the scope of this project. So I think it's really important for us to focus on what's in front of us, and that, in a delightful, concise, clear presentation from both staff and the applicant, I'm absolutely delighted to support this. Thank you.
Vice Chair Chang.
I just wanted to say that while we may have concerns about the GUP, the general use permit, that is not our job as the Planning and Transportation Commission, since the GUP itself is not in question right now. There's no application for that. And so what we are being asked to look at is specifically a conditional use permit. And for that, I believe we can't treat any one applicant differently from any other applicant in the city. And for conditional use permits, we have to make 2 findings. And so we need, that's the guide that we can use to always make sure that we're staying kind of in bounds. And if we can make the findings or can't make the findings, then we can pass those made or unmade findings onto city council, because that's our role in this process. That's what the law dictates that we do as a commission. And so I can make the findings for this, like later on, if I'm asked separately regarding the GUP, sure, the fact that we approve a conditional permit may affect how we look at a general use permit. But if the owner were anybody else that isn't subject to a GUP, we would treat them the same way. We should treat Stanford the same way. And so that's how I'm looking at the issue. Thank you.
Commissioner Ekman.
So I appreciate the dialogue that Commissioner Peterson has raised, and I think I understand his sort of bigger point that, you know, Stanford is a huge next door neighbor, and what they plan affects us and interests us. If I'm understanding the general use permit process, if it's activated again, that's a county Stanford process, and Palo Alto is asked for input. It's a little bit like Caltrans projects, where they ask us what we like. They don't have to do it, but they ask us. But I'm also understanding that when that input request comes, whenever it is, the dialogue is really with staff and the council, and then it's communicated to Stanford and the county. And so I think what would be useful to us, because the PTC has no role in that process, is just if it ever happens, if staff just notifies the PTC that it's happening, and then those of us who are interested in our private capacity can attend whatever council meeting this gets discussed at and provide our input and concerns there. And that's how I think our individual concerns can be heard at the council level and communicated adjacent. So, but I do agree with the other commission comments that it's outside the scope of what's in front of us tonight. And so that's why I think maybe that's a good way to handle it. It doesn't need to be a part of the motion. It's just, staff is here, they've heard it, and I'm sure if it comes up, they will just, as an informational item during a assistant director's report, let us know.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So when everybody's done with comments, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Any further comments? I've reserved to last, but in fact, I think everything that I was concerned about has been covered, so I won't add to the list. We are ready for a motion.
I will move the staff recommendations. The PCC recommend to the council approval of the CUP as modified, with those modifications being in the findings, whatever ordering of those 4 words staff determines to be appropriate. Regarding condition 13, whatever modification of that condition staff deems appropriate to clearly articulate the duration of the permit. And with staff's review of conditions 22 through 33 to determine if any of those do not apply to this particular use permit, and if so, remove those.
Second.
Mr. DeVetter, we call the vote.
Yes. Commissioner Templeton,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Chang,
Yes.
Chair Aiken,
Yes.
Commissioner Heckman.
Yes.
Motion carries 502. Commissioners James and G absent.
Thank you very much, everyone. Much appreciated comments from everyone who attended. Thank you. All right. Our next item is approval of the draft summary and verbatim minutes for May 14th and May 28th of 2025. Mr. DeVetta, do we have any public comments?
To the chair, I've received no comment cards and no raised hands on Zoom.
Just as expected. I believe we were all present for both meetings, so we can all vote. So may I have a motion?
Move approval as revised.
Second.
All right, I believe we need to call the roll for this time.
Commissioner Heckman,
Yes.
Chair Aikman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Templeton.
Yes.
Motion carries 502. Commissioners James and G absent.
Thank you very much. I believe we're on to commissioner questions, comments, or announcements. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share? Commissioner Heckman.
Thank you, Chair. Early last week, at lunchtime, I went for a ride in the Baylands, and as I was coming back over the Oregon bike bridge, I came across an older man crumpled on the ramp next to his bike. I called 911, and while I was completing that call, two more bicyclists rode up. One of those bicyclists was a fella named Dominic Vincentini, and Dominic knew CPR. This fellow was in really dire condition. And I later learned that Dominic was a trainer at Stanford for its student athletes. So Dominic assessed the situation. He had us turn this man on his back, and Dominic provided CPR for a full 5 minutes, including breath of life, until the paramedics arrived. The paramedics tried a number of things before bringing out the defibrillator, and on the third attempt, they got his heart started. And so they took him away in an ambulance. I could not see that he regained consciousness. And so I have been wondering if he survived. Earlier today, I heard from Deputy Chief Lindsay that in fact he had survived, that he is walking, talking, and recovering. So that was greatly comforting to me. But after it occurred, it made me think, and I've done a lot. I've experienced a lot of things, but I've never been in a situation anything like that. I've never seen that before. But it occurred to me that that kind of thing happens in Palo Alto all the time. Every time you hear a siren that is not a police car, there's a good possibility that it's something like that that's happening. And so I just wanted to take a minute to reflect on and appreciate the life-saving efforts that the men and women of our fire department provide, as do private citizens like Dominic Vincentini.
Thank you. That was an inspiring comment, and I hope we all can take it to heart. Any further comments? No, that was not intentional. Very well then. If there are no further commissioner comments, we are adjourned.